Just a quick story. Many years ago, long before I had gray hair, I worked as a public defender in the Quincy District Court. And the first case that I had, it was either the first or second case I had, it was probably the same day though. I was assigned a client, and I went downstairs into the lockup, and they had about three different cells, and there might have been 15 people in combination within the different cells. And back in the corner of one of the cells was what appeared to me to be a teenager, and covered for the most part in blood. And I yelled out the name of the person that I was assigned to represent, and he said, "I'm over here." So I said, "Well, we're going to go up in the court. You're going to be arraigned. I've been assigned to represent you." And I was a little taken aback. I was a young attorney. Here I was in a lockup with a guy covered in blood, and I'm thinking, what have I gotten myself into? I thought, quite frankly, they must be a pretty hardened criminal. And I talked to him briefly there, went up, he was arraigned, I went back downstairs and talked to him some more. And you couldn't meet a nicer, more respectful young man than I met that day, who was sitting in the corner of the cell covered in blood. And what I came to learn as I got to know him and represent him was he was somebody who suffered from mental illness. And if my recollection of how everything occurred is correct, he was on medications, and sometimes he'd have difficulty staying on those medications. And there were police involvements. He would sometimes have difficulty keeping a job. And he was home, and there was an incident, and his mother and father didn't know what to do. They dialed 911. The police came. They didn't know what to do at that time, and this was several years ago. He ended up putting his hand through a window. That accounted for the blood. Things escalated, and he got arrested. We worked hard to get him into programs. We found out that he had had treatment before. But I look at that, how that was back in 1991, I guess it was. And then you look at what's contained in this report, and there'll be some presentation on the report itself, and you realize how far we've come, but yet how much more we have to do. In this particular case, a couple things could have been done differently. One, we could have had community outreach, community-based programs for him at that time. When he had other incidents with law enforcement, maybe it would have been the time for law enforcement to get involved and recognize what his problem was and realize that, there's ways we can handle this differently. Parents could have been better educated at the time as to what the problems were. It would have prevented this incredibly nice, respectful young man from ending up in the corner of a jail cell covered in blood. And that's really what this report is about, building alliances between the mental health and criminal justice systems. What a different situation it would have been that first time that he maybe had an incident, that the police responded, the police were well trained, could have recognized it, and get you into some programs, let's get you some contacts, let's get you some assistance. And the person would have then perhaps gotten into some community-based program. And all of this would have helped him get and keep a job, be able to live at home with his parents, and not have it escalate into the type of situation that ultimately escalated into. So here we are now about 20 years later, and we know so much more about what can be done in the community, what can be done with outreach, and what can be done when there is an alliance between mental health and the criminal justice system. And we've seen examples throughout the Commonwealth. We have the deputy chief here from Framingham. We know the program's working there. In my hometown of Quincy, we have an embedded clinician, we have a diversion, and it's working there as well. People coming together to share their resources, share their knowledge, develop programs, that's what's needed. And this paper does a very, very good job of highlighting what's being done, what the problems still are, and what we can do next to make sure that that alliance is built. So it's a very, very valuable piece of work. And I want to thank the Foundation for funding it. I want to thank ABH and NAMI for the work that they did in carrying out this study. And I urge you all to read it, take it back to the office, take it back to somebody who will have an interest in this, take it back to your community, and start the dialogue, as we will continue the dialogue in the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Committee, start and continue dialogue about how we can develop better programs to help people to avoid the criminal justice system, to get the type of care and services that they need, and to live productive lives within our community. It is good, obviously, and most importantly, for that person, for the person who was sitting in the back of the cell covered in blood at a very young age. It's good for that person, And it's good for everybody in the Commonwealth because it saves money. It gets people into jobs. It gets them into communities. It gets them into homes. We all benefit when it works. So congratulations to the work that's been, to those who did the work that resulted in this paper. And thank you. It's a blueprint for all of us as we go forward to trying to make it work for everybody. So thank you very much.